Well, it seems like it's been a while since I've talked to you guys from the seating of the couch with my jerseys behind me since we've been doing the live streams, and those have been quite much fun despite missing last night's live stream. Call it load management if you will. I know that we frown upon that in today's league, but it's your boy Wraith Hoops. Today we're going to be talking about where the Utah Jazz are sitting. I know I owe you guys a couple of videos, so there will be one today if you're watching this on Friday, and Saturday if you're catching this on Saturday. There's probably going to be another one coming up then for you as well. But today we're going to be talking about just overall how the Utah Jazz rough start has come to the season. Yes, we knew they were tanking, but did we expect it to come out this way? For those that remember, you know that I had them pegged at about 3-7 in their first 10 games. They're 0-5. But more on that in a moment. With that being said, it's your boy Wraith Hoops. Go ahead and smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. And without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into this one. Overall, the Utah Jazz have lost to the Grizzlies, the Warriors, the Mavericks, the Kings, and finally, the Spurs. And all of these have been in pretty rough fashion, I would say. I think the better loss was probably against the Mavericks, and if you want to say against the Grizzlies to start out the season, as a warm-up game for the Grizzlies more than anything, because they've been hitting fire and catching fire against everybody. I think that you could go that far. But the tale of the beginning of the season has been injuries, minimal positives, and tanking. So however you can interpret that, it can be good news or bad news, but we're going to go ahead and break that down today. With that being said, we're going to start with some of the more somber news to get that out of the way. Obviously, for those that did end up watching the game where Taylor Hendricks did unfortunately suffer his season-ending injury, it was pretty bad. It was pretty rough, and he was looking very promising defensively, which really sucks because this was the one year where he could make as many mistakes as possible, and it really wouldn't matter because we were hoping to lose most of our games anyways to get a high draft pick. But this was one of those times where I was really trying to push an agenda on how good he could truly be. We saw last year how his three-point shot came alive and how he's pretty solid off the catch. His mechanics got a little bit smoother the more confident he became. And while he didn't really hit that stride offensively this season, defensively, he showed what that extra weight that he put on in the offseason was going to do for him. And I was greatly appreciative of that because it showed that in certain lineups, we could make him a small ball five. He has the ability to do a lot of things that a lot of the other premier bigs do, but he also has the versatility to not get completely mutilated in pick and roll situations, which is really, really good because he's honestly a lot better in the fleet of foot category than a Walker Kessler is. And he averaged basically 1.3 and 1.2 in the steals and blocks categories for those that prefer to look at the numbers and aren't really a tail of the tape kind of characters. But offensively, he did shoot beneath league averages. He averaged about 4.7 points. He had 5 rebounds and 0.7 assists to go along with that. He shot really poorly, something that I'm not going to really get into just because he does have such a small sample size. And similarly, we can look at some of the other guys that ended up getting injured and some of the ones that aren't injured and kind of appreciate what others have been able to do. Now, quite simply, the injury report has gotten ugly because as recently reported by Andy Larson, Keontae George left the game last time with a rolled ankle against the Spurs and returned, and then in post-game said that it was minor. Jordan Clarkson's heel first started hurting him against the Golden State Warriors allegedly, and he'll get checked out tomorrow, which will be today at the time of me recording this video. And then we have Colin Sexton with a busted finger that he's been playing through right now, which may explain to us exactly why he was not a starter in the game against the Kings and later on when it ended up carrying on against the Spurs. Important news that I want to harp on for that Spurs game, even though I knew we were going to lose and they said we were 1.5 point underdogs against the Spurs when Lowry was questionable, but then when Lowry was out, it went to 2.5. I think that was belligerently disrespectful to the Spurs above all else because they are definitely the better team when healthy than we are. And the difference is not anything over the top that we wouldn't have expected. They won by 18 points, 106-88. So that was to be in the books. Myself personally, I thought I had them over about 16 to 22 points, so it fell right in that window for me personally. We did get to see Kyle Filipowski in starter minutes for the first time this season, and while none of the rookies in this class have literally stood out, Kyle Filipowski, for me individually on the Utah Jazz rookie spectrum, has been the best one objectively. Obviously, Isaiah Collier hasn't had an opportunity because of the injury that he sustained in the preseason, But Kyle Filipowski versus Cody Williams, it seems like a night and day comparison. Though Cody Williams has gotten the lion's share of minutes, and when Taylor Hendricks first went down, he ended up filling that role previous to Lauri Markkanen being marked out, and that's how Kyle Filipowski got his start. If Lauri comes back sooner than later, as we expect, I think that it should be Kyle Filipowski filling that next spot beside him instead of Cody Williams. And it just comes down to, yes, Cody Williams does deserve minutes. He is our highest draft pick. There's no arguing that. But when a guy can come from playing 8 to 10 minutes a night to playing 20 to 24 minutes a night, and he can give you 12, 5, and 1 in that 20-minute effort, shooting efficiently from the field, and I believe he's shooting 45% from three-point range. Admittedly, it's only on like 8 or 9 three-point attempts. He's been doing his job really, really well, and he was the last draft pick out of them. Now, myself personally, I knew that he was deserving of being drafted above 32. He was a first-round pick. If you wanted to say he wasn't a mid-lottery draft pick, he's definitely a light lottery to maybe 18th, 20th pick, if you really want to push back that far. So the fact that he fell to us at 32 was really, really good to myself personally because I loved his game. In college, obviously, we knew that he wasn't going to be the greatest defender because there wasn't a lot of emphasis for him specifically on that side of the floor. But it's not like he was getting abused in college. Fast forward to the NBA level, and while he hasn't had the most phenomenal reps, he's not having the same Walker Kessler impact on the defensive side of the floor or the Taylor Hendricks impact. He's still been pretty solid, and he's still been able to hold his own. But again, the thing that we know him for is his offensive capabilities. And when you can come in from being somebody that was a 2-year product at a blue blood school in Duke University, and he took that step forward and really showed that not only can I be productive in minimal minutes, but once you actually give me minutes, I'm going to do the most that I can with them. It's kind of hard to go against that grain because he's proving himself on a consistent basis. Now, in our next game, if he continues that and does it a third game in a row, then I think that it's pretty reasonable to say that he is not only deserving of really solid rotation minutes, but he is arguably in the front running seat for our personal rookie of the year, if you will. Now, Isaiah Collier obviously has the opportunity to change that, but I don't think Cody Williams, until we get like maybe 25, 30 games into the season, will start to show who he really is. And maybe he's just a little bit too raw of a prospect because with Kyle Filipowski, it feels like he's more fluid. He's more intentional with his moves. He can get the ball in a DHO and he can go straight downhill. If you swing it to him on the wing, he's not afraid to drive at the rim, absorb contact, and try and finish that basket. He's not afraid, and it just goes down beyond that because it's not even just a confidence thing. It's a feel for the game thing, and I just don't think Cody Williams is there yet. Now, that's not to say that he can't be, and part of it is probably also the fact that he just is severely outweighed by most of the people that he ends up playing against, so he can't have his way. He can't really bump off of defenders. And while he is a little bit slick and slithery, all the extra speed and length that he had at the college level doesn't really translate exactly perfectly one-to-one over to the NBA, as we know. Nevertheless, I believe that the rookies will be okay, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of Kyle Filipowski. There was actually a video by Sporty Spence, I'll get it linked in the comments below, where he actually talks about Kyle Filipowski a little bit more if you want to know more about his particular college days and so on and so forth. I also did a video on him, so I'll probably link both of those in the comments just for those that want to check that out. But moving forward, Walker Kessler has been a really solid surprise for me, to be quite honest. We talked in the offseason about him, being a guy where him being good will hinge on him being confident, him being aggressive in the paint. We know he can be a good rebounder, but will he be a good rebounder? We know he can score in the paint, but will he score in the paint? We know he can set screens. We know he can roll to the rim, but will he do those things effectively and knowingly? Now, he hasn't shot any three-pointers. He hasn't shot any serious jumpers. But nevertheless, I believe that he is night and day between what he was last season and what he is this season. Defensively, things are still there. He's still clicking. He's still attacking the glass and beating boards every which way. So I'm loving where he's going. He's smacking the ball off the rim like a ping pong ball. He's not afraid of anybody's contact, anybody's athleticism. There's no fear in his heart, and I love that because while it may not immediately make him, a 20 and 10 guy, it's going to make him a consistent double-double guy, which he has done so far this season. So much so that I actually have to tell you guys about this lovely trade rumor that ended up getting squashed. It was posted on Twitter by Legion Hoops that the Jazz have no interest in the Lakers' potential offer for D'Angelo Russell and multiple first-round picks for Walker Kessler from Sam Amick. Now, this is hilarious to me because we know that Walker Kessler was going to be in a lot of trade rumors. He's one of the guys on our roster that has one of the higher trade values. Obviously, Lowry is untradeable until the end of the season at the very least, and he plans on sticking around as long as possible. But Walker Kessler needed to prove that, hey, I deserve to be part of this future. And not only that, but I'm worth it. not only am I worth more than one draft pick like the New York Knicks were trying to get by easy, it's also a thing of him saying that I'm so valuable, you should be very hesitant to trade me. And he's showing that. And the Lakers are a very good team that would want to get Walker Kessler because they need a center. Though they've been pretty successful so far this season with JJ Redick at the helm, they realize that if you can pair a reliable rim protector alongside Anthony Davis, it prevents a lot of issues for them defensively and allows him to be more effective in the ways that he would like to be offensively. But again, Walker Kessler is on the Utah Jazz and he's picked it up, so we need to go ahead and give him his praise. On the season, he's averaging 8 points, 10.5 rebounds, 1.5 assists. His playmaking has been a little bit more sneaky impressive than it has been in the past, by the way. He also averages 0.8 assists and 2.6 blocks while shooting 58% from the field, which I love a lot because it just shows that overall he hasn't allowed the trade rumors to deter him or to make him feel less than or to make him feel like his role is in question. He's just stepped up and grabbed the bull by the horns and got ready to go. And that's something that you can always admire. Meanwhile, somebody like a Keontae George has seen a little bit of struggle, put mildly. He has started in all 5 games, and while he did end up rolling his ankle against the Spurs and came back and said that it was minor, he has not been very good. He has played the season-high minutes for the team with 31.5 a game, averaging 13.2 points, 3.4 rebounds, 6.2 assists, which is a career high, obviously, and hopefully it can stay. But alongside that, 0.6 steals and shooting 28% from the field and 20% from three-point range, it's not very lovely to look at from a number standpoint. Mind you, he's shooting a team-high 15 field goal attempts per game, which means he's only hitting 4.2 of them. And from 3, he's taking 8 threes, meaning he's only hitting 1.5. So he's the guy that is getting the lion's share of the opportunities. They're trying to push the agenda that he should be a point guard. And if they're not sure that he should be a point guard, they need to have the necessary data to back that up and say, you know what? We tried it and it just quite simply didn't work. And that's okay. That's what's happening right now. And it's getting kind of ugly, but it's getting over, shall we say. And the injuries aren't necessarily helping anything, which makes me feel unfortunate for him in particular because he isn't a bad NBA player. He's just struggling. And the unfortunate thing was that I expected his numbers in this particular season to go up and to look more impressive because of how he played in the Summer League. And while it wasn't the greatest, in the preseason, the efficiency was off the charts for him. And so I thought, you know what time to buy in on Keontae George stock, even though I don't love him as a point guard, than right now. And while that may have been the case then, that is not the case now because even despite having a 76.2 free throw percent on 4.2 attempts, he sports a true shooting percentage of 39.2, which obviously isn't any good, to be quite honest with you. He also averages a team-high 4 turnovers, which stands to reason because of his heavy point guard duties, him still trying to learn his way and work his way through the niche areas and nuances of everything. And while he does have Patty Mills to assist him, Isaiah Collier, I think, will end up giving him a little bit more relief because he's younger. He has a little bit more kick in his step, and I think that honestly Isaiah Collier just has more of a point guard sense despite being equally, if not more, turnover prone at this particular moment as Keontae George is. Nevertheless, I do believe that this is a shooting slump, which is kind of hard to say because 5 games of cheeks just kind of means your cheeks, but nevertheless, I'll say when we get to the 10-11 game mark, that's when we can make some real understanding judgments of who these guys are as players and how Keontae George's season in particular, from a shooting standpoint, will look the rest of the year because he can score, but we just haven't really seen it the way we saw it before and how we thought he was going to take the step forward, basically. Moving on, we have one Jordan Clarkson, who has been less than desirable in his minutes. Now, he did start the season on the bench in the last 2 games. He started over Colin Sexton, despite Colin Sexton having a really good game. Literally the game before getting subbed, he was 9 of 11 from the field. I don't think he could shoot much better than that, but they ended up deciding to make a switch. I think that it was more so, maybe it's because of the Colin Sexton injury to his finger, or maybe it's just they wanting to give Jordan Clarkson more of an opportunity to boost his stock and give him some starter level minutes to advertise him to other teams, because we know his stock and trade value went down drastically after last season, him shooting career lows in both field goal percentage and 3-point percentage. Did he get better? No. At least in the minutes that he's played so far. Early on in the season, again, he's played in all 5 games, but hopefully things do get progressively better because I would like to see him get a better opportunity where he can help a team win basketball games. He's averaging about 25 minutes a night. He's putting together 13 points, 3.5 rebounds, 3.5 assists. He's shooting literally 39% from the field on 12 field goal attempts, and then he's also shooting 19.2% from three-point range on 5.2 attempts a game. So, understandably, he's struggling. And I don't know how much better it gets for him. I don't think that he's at the end of his career, but it's kind of hard to argue with numbers. And when you watch the game and understand that he's not necessarily the greatest defender to begin with, even when he tries, it's a little bit rough to explain to other teams why they should take him on. And maybe it's a scheme thing, maybe it's an opportunities thing, but at the same time, he just hasn't really been the Jordan Clarkson of old. And maybe that's just Father Time catching up to him. Maybe it's just him not having the athleticism or the ability to get those same tough shots off at the same rate that he had it before. But I do ultimately think that he will, at the very least, bounce back a little bit and shoot in the 40s overall from a field goal percentage standpoint. At the very least, I hope so. But at the moment, it's just not quite there. The other half of him is obviously Colin Sexton, who has started 3 out of his 5 games, played in all 5, playing through that finger injury, as I said before, playing less minutes than Jordan Clarkson now at 23.5, averaging 14 points, 2.5 rebounds, 2 assists. He's shooting 46% from the field on 10 field goals a game and shooting 20% from 3 on 2 field goals a game from three-point range, which is surprising more so from the three-point range than from the regular field goal range because remember, last year when he was starting, he was shooting roughly 50, 40, 90 splits. So the dip in overall field goal percentage-wise isn't too crazy, especially when you hear that he has the finger injury. But the three-point percentage being on just 2 attempts a game is kind of trippy to me because he had a reasonable volume. I believe he averaged 4.7 last season. So him having the opportunity to shoot threes should always be there. But the fact that he hasn't been really taking them at a high rate and also hasn't hit them at a very high rate. I think he had one particular game where he shot really good. One game he attempted none at all. And then he had one really, really rough game shooting. I just don't know what to really make of it just yet. I hope that this isn't just him getting thrown to the wayside and eventually getting just shipped off. But, I mean, if that does happen, I hope that he has the opportunity to show what he really is. I believe that the keys to the engine should have been in his hands alongside Larry Markkinen, but they're trying to force feed Keontae George something right now. And we just have to wait to see if it does pan out this year. And if it doesn't pan out this year, I expect them to shut it down rather quickly and give the keys to somebody else at the point guard spot. Talking about the other rookie, obviously we had Cody Williams. He started in 2 games so far out of the 5 that he's played in. He's played in all 5 games, by the way. 22.5 minutes, 3.4 points, 3.2 rebounds, and assists. He's been okay from the field, though. He's shooting 20.8% and 17.6% from three-point range on 4.8 and 3.4 field goal attempts, respectively, both from the field and from three-point range. And again, he just hasn't made the adjustment just yet, and I'm not sure when it's going to happen, but it's probably going to take a little bit of time before his shooting percentages get to league averages. Then you have the one John Collins, and he's really the big piece of the pie that I do want to talk about that's remaining, to be quite honest with you, because he's been playing sizable minutes. He's been pretty effective in the minutes that he's played, averaging about 14.5 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal, a block, shooting 42.5% from the field on 13 field goal attempts, basically, and then a lowly 29.4% from three-point range on 3.4 field goal attempts. So the three-point shooting isn't necessarily there the way that it should be, and it's kind of a continuation of how he looked after All-Star break last year, but I think that he'll progressively get better because he hasn't had all poor shooting nights, especially from three-point range. It's just been a couple that were really egregious to the point where it just skewed his numbers. And again, as you play more games, your numbers become more normalized, and we know exactly who you are. He's playing about 22.5 minutes a game, so that's also something that plays into it, and he got relegated to the bench. And Walker Kessler has thus far proven that was a correct decision to make because defensively he's been top tier and offensively he's taken a step forward as well as being a darn near elite rebounder in my personal book. And I think that will continue. Obviously him averaging that 10.5 rebounds a game is something that's going to push things in the right direction. But John Collins averaging not averaging 10.5 boards a game is more so on his minutes and the fact that he's just not a good rebounder anymore, of course. Bryce Ball doesn't really get too much love, and I don't know if he's going to crack the rotation right now. He doesn't really have anything that pushes him over the top as a scorer, and really scoring is the only thing that's been known to be his calling card. Obviously, averaging 5.5 points isn't going to do you much in 15 minutes, but he shoots 45% from the field and 42% from three-point range on 3 points, 2.8 a game, and he's played in all 5 games, to be quite honest with you, so him being able to produce in a very small sample size of minutes should bode well for him to get an expanded role, especially with these injuries if we do see more of these guys go down. Obviously, we thought that we were going to see some guys getting held out and have some phantom injuries after the trade deadline, but not necessarily before, yet here we are, and we just gotta roll with the punches. Again, Patty Mills giving us quality minutes, not really anything crazy to speak of from a number standpoint. Literally the only thing that's over 1 in the positives would be his overall points, which is 3.2, but I mean everything else is negligible decimal numbers. And then, like I said, Kyle Filipowski being successful in the games that he's played. He's played 4 out of the 5 games, started in the 1 most recent. Overall, averaging 13.5 minutes per game, putting together 6 points, 3.5 boards, 1.5 assists. So that's pretty respectable. And then on his 5 field goal attempts, he's shooting 52.6% from the field and 40% from 3 on 2.5 3-point attempts per game. And then you have guys like Johnny Juzang and Drew Eubanks, who have together played 5 games, 2 and 3 apiece, and not had the biggest impact, but they're not necessarily bad players. They just haven't had their opportunity, I guess, to crack at it. And maybe they also get some extended minutes, obviously, with Larry Markkinen being out for a more extended period of time, more than likely. And then we have the loss of Taylor Hendricks, which will create some interesting buzz with the young guys, as well as Keontae George taking a step back. I wonder if when Isaiah Collier comes back into the fold, if he gets the opportunity to get a start. But that's just wishful thinking. Now, with all those numbers and hoopla thrown at you guys, the overall thing that I just want to preface is the fact that the Utah Jazz were understanding that they were going to be a bad team. I was hoping that we wouldn't have lost this egregiously to every team that we've played, but it happened nevertheless, and I guess it moves us closer to the ever so desirable goal of getting an Ace Bailey / Cooper Flagg / VJ Edgecombe type talent in this upcoming year's draft. And I do hope that this is the last year where we see a significant drop off in expectation and just expect to tank. I think that next year we will have the talent necessary to get the job done, or at the very least to ascend NBA playing team, because I think when healthy, if we start the proper lineups, we could win a sizable 35 to 41 games, depending on what our rotation would look like. But at the moment, that's not the goal. So with the addition of a top tier possible, franchise cornerstone piece, I think that we could see a massive leap in our overall potential for what we could potentially be. But again, that remains to be seen because we're not there yet. So just sit down, buckle up, attempt to enjoy the ride, I guess. We've got some basketball in front of us. It might not all be good basketball, but we've got some basketball. So keep your eye out on the Keontae George improvement, hopefully the Walker Kessler continued aggression, and Kyle Filipowski taking that next step in seizing the reins. There's also the potential of Jordan Clarkson and Colin Sexton's frigid relationship for minutes. Without any further ado, though, I know I've dragged this out long enough. It's your boy Ray Hoops. Thank you for tuning in this video. If you made it this far, go ahead and smash that like button, subscribe, turn on post notifications, become a member, or drop a donation to help support the content. And without any further ado, good morning, good evening, and good night, no matter where you're on the globe watching. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.